Welcome into this Wednesday edition of VU Sports Wired, Vanderbilt Video Productions' premier sports talk show. My name is Bobby Kent, and I am your host. I am once again joined by Andrew Wilf, the deputy sports editor for the Vanderbilt Hustler, as well as Jonah Barbin, a staff writer. We will dive deep into football's victory over the Northern Illinois Huskies, as well as Vanderbilt soccer's loss to LSU in the first game of SEC play. First, we will start with football, where the Commodores snatched their third win of the season from the jaws of defeat, mounting a 14-point comeback in the second half to defeat the Huskies 38-21. Vanderbilt is now 3-1 on the season, one improved from their win total from the entirety of last season, and the most since they won 3 games in 2019. Also of note, Vanderbilt is only one of 5 FBS programs with multiple wins on the road this season. Next up for the Commodores will be number 2 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa as SEC play begins. Let's first take a look at how Vanderbilt's win over Northern Illinois unfolded.
Freshman A.J. Swan caps off this near-perfect 12-play opening drive for Vanderbilt, faking the handoff and throwing a beautiful pass to find tight end Gavin Schoenwald for the touchdown. Vandy up 7-0 after their opening drive. Northern Illinois would quickly answer as quarterback Rocky Lombardi would fire a dart to receiver Cole Tucker for the 1-yard score, all square after 2 drives. Back and forth again, this time Swan handing off to Raymond Davis, who takes it in for the touchdown, 14-7 Vanderbilt. The very next drive, the Huskies tie it again as Ethan Hampton, who entered for the injured Rocky Lombardi, finds his receiver for the 4-yard score, 14-14 at that point. Following a Vanderbilt punt, the Huskies would take the lead, this time by way of running back Ontario Brown, breaking through the Vanderbilt defense all the way through to the end zone for the 51-yard score. Huskies up 21-14 at half. After the half, NIU would score again, Ethan Hampton connecting with Cole Tucker for his second score of the contest, as Tucker weaves his way around the Vanderbilt secondary, breaking tackles in his wake for the long 70-yard touchdown. NIU would go up 28-14 in what would be their biggest lead of the day. Vandy would mark a comeback and never look back. A.J. Swan doing his best Houdini impression. I mean, how did he do that? He looked dead to rights, breaking out of the sack and finding Raymond Davis down the left sideline for the score. What a play. That will be on his highlight reel forever. Later in the quarter, Vandy would tie the game as A.J. Swan finds Will Shepard on a slant for 6. Shepard breaks out of the tackle and takes it in for the score. 28-28, Vanderbilt completes the comeback, all tied up. Later in the quarter, Vandy would take the lead for good, Swan throwing his 4th touchdown pass of the day for Shepard's FBS leading 7th score of the season. Vandy wins 38-28 and improves to 3-1 on the season.
I want to hone in on A.J. Swan's performance, the main story of the game, and Clark Lea's decision to start him. It came as a surprise to many, as Mike Wright had one bad game. What did you guys see from Swan's performance? What did he do well, and how can he improve moving forward? And finally, was this a good move by Coach Lee?
Absolutely. First off, I want to talk about Mike Wright. Mike had a phenomenal first 2 games and had a rough first half against Wake Forest, but I don't think it was about Wright not playing well. It was maybe Swan was going to be the guy this whole season, just the outsiders didn't know that. One thing that was really surprising to me is he's playing against NIU. I would have predicted Swan to play maybe mid-November when Vanderbilt had a losing record, not when they were 2-1. So that's one thing. But what I saw from Swan, incredibly impressive. You know, had that Houdini touchdown to put the game at 28-21, scrambled, kind of like that Eli Manning sack, looked like it was going to be a sack in that 2007 Super Bowl, evaded a tackler and made an amazing throw to Ray Davis in the end zone. You know, that was a really great play, and I was just really impressed with the Georgia native. He's a freshman, but he's been a pro since the day he got there, and Clark Lee said that in yesterday's presser. Right when he got there, he did not act like a freshman. He acts like a QB1, and it's going to be really exciting to see him play against one of the best defenses in the country and definitely the best college coach of all time.
Jonah, what do you think?
Yeah, look, Clark Lee made this decision. A.J. Swan was his first starting quarterback that he actually recruited. So, like Andrew said, this was probably the plan all along. Now, maybe did Lee go to Swan earlier than he intended? Perhaps, but losing against Wake Forest, he wanted to see if Swan could give them a jolt. He did, and he earned the job. It makes a lot of sense. He has big arm talent. He was the SEC Freshman of the Week. A lot of really nice passes. Andrew talked about the Houdini one that's getting picked up on Twitters everywhere. but here's something interesting to look at. Talking about Mike Wright. Mike Wright's last full game was against Elon. Now, he had eerily similar stats to Swan in the game against NIU. Mike Wright was 18 for 29, Swan was 18 for 28, 245 yards for Wright, 255 for Swan, and both threw for 4 touchdowns. So let's see how Swan performs against teams that have been preparing against him all week. But a really good start for A.J. Swan, and I think this has been the guy all along, Bobby.
Definitely. No, I think it was a really strong performance from him. I was very impressed, especially how, the first half they started out really strong, and then they let the comeback, but then Vanderbilt got back in the game, and Swan really ignited that. I want to give props to the recruiting staff for finding these impact freshmen. Jaden McGowan also has earned SEC Freshman of the Week this year. Guys that have speed, that have length, and then with Swan, arm talent, all skills that you need to compete in football games and compete in the SEC going forward. I agree with your point, though, that there was sort of no film on him. So it'll be interesting to see how SEC opponents attack him going forward and what his weaknesses they try to expose. But he made some really good, quick decisions and early reads. I thought, especially the pass to Shepard to tie the game, the slant was a really good play call by the offensive coordinator, Joey Lynch, to get that ball out really quick. And also when they move Swan around the pocket and he's able to make those nice touch passes, I think it definitely changes the game in that regard. So, fellas, this game was a real tale of 3 parts, right? The strong start where Vanderbilt scored on the first 2 possessions and then fell behind 28-14 in the middle, only to mount a great comeback and win it 38-28. So how was Vanderbilt able to come back in your guys' view?
Obviously Wake Forest wasn't a great game, but let's go back to Elon. Vanderbilt played really well in the first quarter, and then the second and third quarter, their defense kind of fell asleep. We saw that a bit against NIU, but something I really was impressed with was Vanderbilt's offense, even down 14, stayed with the running game. This year, they have 9 rushing touchdowns through 4 games. Last year, the team had 8 rushing touchdowns the whole season. And that's a credit to the very much improved offensive line. So I was really impressed with that. I think Swan had a really solid pocket, and that's what happened. You're down 28-14, but last year's Vanderbilt team, I think, would have just surrendered, kind of like that first drive against Hawaii. Hawaii scores, but Vanderbilt punched right back. That's what I was really impressed with. And, that's why I have a sense of confidence going into these SEC games. Maybe not as much against Alabama, but maybe against a team like Missouri. When you're down a touchdown or 2, stay within the game, stay with a sounded defense, and that gives you a chance to, win the game.
Definitely.
88.4. 88.4% was the number ESPN's matchup win predictor gave NIU to win the game when A.J. Swan passed to Jaden McGowan and he fumbled in the third quarter with 11 minutes left in the third quarter. This is a Vanderbilt team that in years past would usually die with only a 12% chance to win. But this team has a lot of fight in them. This actually was amazing. I read this. In the past 43 years, just 7 times Vanderbilt has won 3 of their first 4 games. Like I said, this is not a game that they would probably win in the past. Looked really good on both sides of the ball at different times. There was definitely defensive holes, but there were bright spots on defense, as we've been alluding to. So there was a lot of encouraging things to take away from this game. It's not just the A.J. Swan story. It's not just the Will Shepard story. There was a lot to take away positive, Bobby.
Definitely. I think from a game perspective as a whole, having more passing yards at NIU was huge. Having more rushing yards, time of possession was essentially even. But, also converting on 50% of third downs and converting on both fourth downs, that's huge. Big for the offense to be able to stay on the field moving forward. I think, total yards, Vanderbilt also dominated. Raymond Davis had a really good game, 116 yards on 23 carries. I think any time that Vanderbilt could sort of get that balance of run and pass, I think only makes them more a dynamic threat to score touchdowns. And I want to give a shout out to Will Shepard, who is 7 receiving touchdowns, lead the FBS right now. And he's been the go-to guy for Vanderbilt's offense all season. Teams probably know he's the go-to guy, and they still can't stop him. So that's been, I think, a testament to his skill this year. And to top it all off, he got a shout out from Des Bryant on Twitter. So that's pretty cool, I'd say. But it also has most catches this season. With he had 6 against Elon, but he had 10 receptions this game. So Will Shepard has definitely been and killing it. Any final thoughts about the offense?
I think you hit it right on the head. I think one more thing, I think it was the college football first team all offense for the week. Will Shepard got the second receiver spot. I can't tell you the last time that happened from a Vanderbilt player. And, Shepard just dominated on every play. It seemed like NIU just was not a Power 5 team, and that was like a type of game where you could see it. He just manhandled their defenders and bullied them, at the point of attack every single play.
Definitely. Yeah, and now over to the defense. Letting up 28 points to a MAC opponent isn't ideal, especially with SEC play coming up. But the defense buckled down in the second half, including a few big stops. What did you guys see from them, and what players or moments stood out?
Yeah, I mean, the defense, it's going to be hard this week against Bryce Young. Obviously, Young has a 68.2% completion percentage. But what I saw last week is, they just didn't give up. Anthony Orji is that perfect captain in the back. And I think now you're starting to see really the Clark Lee defense that he wanted to bring in. When you have a college program and you have a new coach, it's going to take a few years to get these recruits and the team really buying in. That's something I really saw. And maybe there isn't a turnover every single play, but it's about stopping them on 3rd and 4, stopping them on 3rd and 5, and that's going to be really key against Alabama because what makes them really good is their high-tempo offense, especially when defenses are on the field for, say, 60% of the game, because that's what I predict is going to happen from a time of possession point of view this weekend.
Definitely. Jonah, anybody stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. BJ Diake was great in the game, 2.5 tackles for loss and a sack. Like Andrew said, Orji was again a great leader on the field. DeRicky Wright's game-sealing interception and getting Lucien in the starting lineup was big too. I thought something interesting about the defensive rebound in the game. The first 13 pass plays for NIU were all completions, yet the last 14 quarterback dropbacks in the fourth quarter just resulted in 25 yards. So they gave up some big pass plays early on. Obviously, there was some sloppy run defense, especially at the end of the half. But overall, Vanderbilt did bounce back and show resilience to back up A.J. Swan in that offense.
Definitely. And then showing resilience is going to be huge going into Vanderbilt's next game. Let's discuss the tilt a little bit more in depth with Alabama. I know you've alluded to it, Andrew, but now this won't be a win most likely, but what can be considered a victory from this game? What do you guys want to see from the Commodores to feel good, if that's possible, after this one?
Obviously, when you see this game, you can't not think about the 40.5-point favorites that Vanderbilt come into this game. The last game, Vanderbilt didn't put up a point. The game before that, they didn't put up a point. So I think it was 2007, I want to say, or around that time, the last time Vanderbilt scored any points against Alabama. Granted, they play each other every 5 seasons. Something I really want to see this week is don't let yourself lose the game in the first quarter. It's a win if you're within 10 points in the first quarter, and it's also a win if you keep Bryce Young in the pocket. Let him win with his arm. Mm-hmm. Don't make him scramble all the time. And that's what Clark Lee said is going to be really tough because they have a really good offensive line. Let's not forget about their left tackle, Steen, a former Vanderbilt player, and that's going to be a good rivalry game for a lot of these Vanderbilt defensive ends, seeing their ex-teammate go over to the Crimson Tide.
Jonah, what are you keying in on?
Yeah, look, we're not going to give the keys to victory to this game. Obviously, a victory walking out of Tuscaloosa is more experience for Swan and all these young players, McGowan, you name them. But going against Nick Saban in that environment is great for a team that Clark Lee said at the beginning of the year intended to be the best program in the nation one day. So there's no doubt that to be the best, you got to beat the best. We're not necessarily looking at a win this weekend, but there could be a lot of moral victories. Some things to look out against Alabama is they've committed 21 penalties in the last 2 weeks. Now, Nick Saban is, as you probably know, furious with that. That's not Alabama football, so we'll see if Vanderbilt can continue to force the issue, especially offensively. And Nick Saban recently called Jahmyr Gibbs one of the most consistent weapons Alabama has had this season, so it'll be interesting to see how Clark Lee and the defensive side of things plan to cover Gibbs.
Definitely, I agree with all the points you guys have made. I mean, also, I'd love to see Vanderbilt execute the game plan as best you can, right? Push the issue, keep Bryce Young in the pocket. I think staying healthy is also a big thing. I think you come into a game, you think, okay, yeah, of course they're going to stay healthy, but injuries do happen. So hopefully staying healthy, Swan making good decisions, limiting mistakes as best as he possibly can, because Alabama's defense is going to be all over the ball. But the rushing attack, I mean, it's definitely difficult against their defensive line, and against playing against Will Anderson and linebacker and for Alabama. But I'd love to see Raymond Davis get some good runs. I'd love to see Will Shepherd get the ball. Maybe they can use Jaden McGowan as more of a gadget guy, as a little bit of a I thought they did a really good job of that against Illinois, where they would have him in motion all the time, and you didn't know whether he was getting the ball on a screen or if he was just there as a decoy, and I think that worked out really well. So if Vanderbilt can continue that against Alabama, that'll help. But Jahmyr Gibbs for Alabama, their running back, is going to be really tough to stop. The Georgia Tech transfer. So yeah, this will be a tough test. But like you said, I mean, if you want to be the best, you got to play against the best, and Vanderbilt will definitely see what the best standard is this week. Any other final thoughts on Alabama before we switch over to soccer?
Just one more thing. I think all Vanderbilt fans remember when Vanderbilt won a game and then their defensive end said, "We want Bama," and then Hertz and Co. came over and just destroyed the Commodores. I think this is a way different team. This is a more disciplined team. And look, I know they're going into Tuscaloosa, but I think it's going to be a really great opportunity for these freshmen, these young players, to see what it's like playing in the heart of the SEC, playing against one of the best players in the country, because you get better by playing the best. So to be the best, you need to play the best, and that's kind of alluding to what you said before.
Yeah, definitely. And switching over to the pitch, so that'll be an interesting game to watch, definitely. There'll be a lot of things to look forward to. And now switching over to the pitch, where Vanderbilt soccer had started the season 6-0-1, having recorded shutouts in 6 of their 7 games. Now the Commodores dropped their contest on Sunday 2-1 against LSU in the first game of SEC play. LSU struck first, but Vanderbilt tied it, only for LSU to score in the second half and win the game. So Vanderbilt had to lose at some point. We knew that was coming. And might as well get it over with in the first SEC game, right? What did we see? What did you guys see from the game? Is there anything to worry about? What did you make of Ambrose saying that they played sloppy, and will they be able to fix it?
I think the Commodores, it took some time, but they've suddenly lost their composure, and that'll happen sometimes when you play against conference-slated opponents. They outshot Vanderbilt 11-9. LSU is a very solid team, and something that I want to say is Ambrose always has these student athletes play better the next game, especially after the loss. So it's going to be about how this squad rebounds. And look, this soccer team has a really solid roster, and sometimes you need this experience before playoffs come to really know the character and identity of this ball club.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't think it's time to sound the alarms after one game. This team is built very strongly under Ambrose. If you're looking at reasons why either the Commodores were outshot or not getting quality shots, it was really just a strong play from the defensive line of LSU. Commodores were having to shoot from far away, and that's something that is correctable. And you look at it. What I look at in how strong this team is even in the 80th minute, right? In a game they lost, they had a chance to tie the game after a foul on Wagner. There was a free kick that had the potential, but was cleared out of the box. It was booted. So at the end of the day, I look at this as not a chance to regroup. Don't sound the alarms. This team has the talent it takes to win in the SEC. Let's all relax a little bit and see how this squad bounces back.
Definitely, I would agree with both of your points there. It's not a time to panic at all. This team's going to have a lot more SEC games coming up. I think that these are only getting experience from these matchups. And like you said, Jonah, to have a chance to potentially tie it in the 80th minute is huge. So eventually, you feel that one of those will go in, and they will tie the game, or they will find a situation to take a lead in a game. So, Ambrose will definitely be able to have this squad make those corrections going forward. And, I think it was also really encouraging that they had more corner kicks and committed less fouls than LSU. So for as much as they played undisciplined, they also played a little disciplined, and you have to be able to have less fouls. So I think I'm not worried about this team going forward. I'm excited to see how they play against Kentucky tomorrow and moving forward. So Vanderbilt soccer next plays against Kentucky at home tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So I say get out to the games and root on this squad. We will have all the action covered for you on VU Sports Wired. That'll do it for this week's show. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.